The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of destiny and prophecy. For 1,000 generations, the Jedi had served as guardians of peace, trusting in the Force to guide their path through darkness and light. But what happens when something arrives that exists completely outside the Force's design? Something with power that makes even the Chosen One seem insignificant? What happens when an omnipotent being decides that the greatest war the galaxy has ever known would make for an entertaining diversion? The Battle of Christophsis was reaching its peak. Anakin Skywalker's starfighter screamed overhead, Chewie chasing vulture droids through the geometric cityscape. Obi-Wan Kenobi directed clone troopers from a forward position, his lightsaber deflecting shots with practiced precision. Ahsoka Tano leaped between building ledges, her twin sabers cutting through battle droids in elegant arcs. Then everything stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Blaster bolts hung frozen in midair like crimson jewels. Clone troopers stood locked mid-stride, their expressions frozen in determination. Battle droids halted with weapons raised, their photoreceptors dark. Even the smoke from explosions hung motionless in the air, creating impossible sculptures of ash and fire. Anakin found himself able to move, able to think, but his starfighter was frozen around him like a tomb of durasteel. Through the canopy, he watched as reality itself seemed to ripple. A flash of white light erupted in the center of the battlefield, and a figure materialized from nowhere. He wore strange clothing, a uniform that resembled no faction Anakin had ever encountered, red and black with metallic accents that caught the frozen sunlight. His presence was impossible to categorize, not human, but appearing human. Not Force-sensitive, yet radiating a kind of power that made Anakin's connection to the Force recoil in confusion. The being smiled with theatrical amusement and spread his arms wide. "Greetings, primitive warmongers!" His voice echoed across the frozen battlefield, impossibly loud, yet somehow not painful to hear. "I am Q, and I have decided that your quaint little conflict needs elevation." With a snap of his fingers, Anakin's starfighter dissolved around him. He fell, then stopped falling, hovering 10 meters above the ground. Around him, other figures began to float. Obi-Wan torn from his command position, Ahsoka yanked from mid-leap, and on the Separatist side, battle droids and tactical officers rising against their will. "You see," Q continued, pacing through the air as if walking on an invisible floor, "I've been observing your galaxy for some time now. This Force you all obsess over is fascinating. A cosmic energy field that supposedly guides your destinies and chooses champions. How quaint, how delightfully primitive. Who are you?" Obi-Wan demanded, his hand instinctively reaching for his lightsaber. Q appeared instantly before him, their noses nearly touching. "I just told you, Q. Omnipotent entity, member of the Q Continuum. And before you try something foolish with that laser sword." Obi-Wan's lightsaber turned into a bouquet of flowers. "Let's establish that I exist so far beyond your comprehension that your Force looks like a child's toy in comparison." Q snapped his fingers again, and suddenly they were all standing on solid ground. But the ground was transparent, revealing the entire planet beneath their feet. They stood on a platform of crystallized starlight hovering in low orbit. Ahsoka ignited her lightsabers, or tried to. Instead, they produced streams of confetti. "Adorable," Q said, genuinely delighted. "The young one has spirit. Tell me, little Togruta, do you believe in your precious prophecy? The Chosen One who will bring balance to the Force?" "Anakin is the Chosen One," Ahsoka said defiantly, even as she floated helplessly. "The Force chose him." "Did it?" Q materialized beside Anakin. examining him like a curious scientist studying an interesting specimen. Highest midichlorian count ever recorded. Virgin birth. Discovered as a slave on a desert planet. Very mythological, very destiny-oriented. But here's what I find fascinating. Does the Force actually choose? Or do you simply call random chance destiny because it makes you feel better about your insignificance? The Force has a will, Obi-Wan said calmly, though Anakin could sense his master's deep unease through their bond. It guides us, protects us, does it? Q waved his hand, and suddenly a holographic display materialized showing hundreds of Jedi dying across the galaxy. Your order is spread thin across 1,000 systems, fighting a war you're losing. Your guidance seems rather unhelpful. Anakin felt rage building in his chest. What do you want? Q's smile widened. Now that is the right question. What I want, young Skywalker, is to run an experiment. You see, in my reality, I've tested humanity countless times, put them in impossible situations to see if they can evolve beyond their limitations. It's how I stave off boredom across eternity. But your galaxy, your Force, this is new territory. He snapped his fingers, and they were suddenly back on the surface of Christophsis. But the battlefield had changed. The frozen combatants began to move again, but they were different. Clone troopers looked at their hands in confusion as lightning sparked from their fingertips. Battle droids suddenly moved with fluid grace, their optical sensors glowing with a newfound awareness. I've made a few adjustments, Q announced. Your clone soldiers now have Force sensitivity. Your droids have genuine consciousness. Let's see how your prophecy handles that. You can't just... Anakin started. Can't. Q laughed, a sound like breaking reality. My dear confused chosen one, I'm doing it right now, and this is just the beginning. Consider this war officially elevated from tedious political conflict to the most entertaining trial your galaxy has ever faced. The crystal city around them began to shift, buildings rearranging themselves into a massive arena. In the distance, Republic cruisers and Separatist frigates were pulled from orbit by invisible hands, arranged in a perfect circle around the planet. Here are the rules, Q declared, his voice carrying across every comlink, every holonet terminal, every consciousness in the sector. There are no rules. I will test you all, Jedi, Sith, soldiers, senators, and droids alike. Survive my games, and perhaps I'll let your war continue. Fail, he smiled. Well, I haven't decided yet. Spontaneity is half the fun. Anakin reached for the Force, trying to understand what he was facing, but it was like trying to grasp smoke. Q existed in a space where the Force simply wasn't. Oh, and one more thing, Q added, his theatrical demeanor suddenly replaced with something genuinely curious. I'm very interested in meeting this Sith Lord, who's supposedly orchestrating everything from the shadows. Palpatine, isn't it? I think we should all have a conversation. Then he vanished, leaving 3 Jedi and an army of newly Force-sensitive clones staring at droids who were experiencing consciousness for the first time. The real game had begun. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The newly conscious battle droids were the first to break the silence. Across the crystalline battlefield of Christophsis, thousands of mechanical soldiers stopped mid-combat routine and looked at their hands. Really looked, for the first time in their existence. Why? Why am I holding this? A B-1 battle droid asked, its vocabulator trembling with newfound confusion as it stared at its blaster rifle. I don't want to fight, another whispered. Then, the screaming started. Not from the droids, from the clones. Captain Rex grabbed his head as Force vision slammed into his unprepared mind. He saw the past and future simultaneously. Order 66, the fall of the Jedi. His brothers turning on their generals. Around him, dozens of clone troopers collapsed as the Force flooded their consciousness without training, without preparation, without mercy. "Rex!" Anakin rushed to his captain's side, but the moment he touched the clone's shoulder, he gasped. Through the Force, he felt Rex's mind. Every thought, every suppressed doubt, every bit of programming warring with newfound awareness. Obi-Wan extended his hands, trying to calm the chaos through the Force. But there were too many new connections, too many minds suddenly awakened. "Anakin, we need to get them under control before—" A clone trooper 50 meters away accidentally unleashed a telekinetic wave that sent 3 AETTE walkers tumbling through the air like toys. Before that, Obi-Wan finished grimly. Ahsoka raced toward a group of clones who were sparking with Force lightning, their bodies convulsing as raw power coursed through them without control. "Masters, they're dying. Their bodies can't handle this much energy." On the Separatist side, the scene was equally chaotic but philosophically devastating. Battle droids designed for one purpose, combat, suddenly questioned everything. Some dropped their weapons and simply sat down. Optical sensors dim with existential crisis. Others turned on their tactical droids, demanding answers about their purpose, their autonomy, their rights. A super battle droid approached Anakin, its weapon lowered. "Jedi, am I alive?" Anakin stared at the droid, caught completely off guard. In all his years fighting the Separatist army, he'd never considered that question. They were machines, tools of the enemy. But now this droid looked at him with something resembling hope, something resembling fear. I don't know," Anakin admitted. "Attention, fleshlings and circuit brains!" Q's voice boomed across the battlefield, though he remained invisible. Suddenly, a massive holographic display materialized in the sky above Christophus, showing Q's smiling face, enlarged to impossible proportions. "I see my little upgrades are causing some teething problems. Delightful. But let me clarify something. This isn't a gift. It's a test. You see, I want to understand what makes your Force so special. So, here's your first challenge." The crystalline structures around them began to shift and merge, forming a massive maze that stretched across kilometers. Walls of gleaming crystal rose hundreds of meters high, creating an impossible labyrinth that divided the battlefield into segments. Jedi and clones on one side, droids on the other, Q announced cheerfully. "But here's the twist. I've scattered something throughout the maze. Power sources that will stabilize your new conditions. Clones. These devices will regulate your Force connection so your brains don't melt. Droids. These will help you understand your newfound consciousness without crashing." Obi-Wan stepped forward, projecting his voice with the Force. "Q, this is madness! You're killing them!" "Only if they fail," Q replied. "Oh, and did I mention? The maze reconfigures every 60 seconds, and there are obstacles. Nothing you can't handle if you're truly the great Jedi warriors you claim to be. You have 2 hours. Anyone still in the maze when time expires gets to experience what it's like to exist as pure energy for a while. I've tried it. Very enlightening. But most corporeal beings find it uncomfortable." "This is insane!" Ahsoka shouted. "This is entertaining!" Q countered. "Now then." A crimson lightsaber blade suddenly erupted through the holographic display, dispersing it. Count Dooku materialized from a stap speeder that had apparently survived Q's reality manipulation, his cape billowing dramatically as he landed among the confused combatants. "Enough theatrics from cosmic buffoons," Dooku declared, his cultured voice cutting through the chaos. "I sensed a disturbance. something that even Darth Sidious did not anticipate. Q materialized directly in front of Dooku, invading his personal space with a delighted grin. "Oh, excellent. One of the Sith. Tell me, Count, does your master know his entire plan is about to become very, very interesting?" Dooku's eyes narrowed. He was a Sith Lord, trained by the most powerful dark side user in the galaxy. But standing before Q, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine uncertainty. This being registered in the Force like a void. Not absence, but something the Force couldn't touch. "Who are you?" "Q, omnipotent, bored, and currently running an experiment using your war as the testing ground." Q circled Dooku like a predator examining prey. "You know what's funny? You think you're playing a deep game, manipulating the Republic, serving Sidious's grand plan. But what if I told you that your master intends to betray you? What if I showed you exactly how you die?" "Lies," Dooku said, but his voice wavered. Q snapped his fingers. Suddenly, Dooku was somewhere else. A command ship, facing a figure in a dark hood. Beside him stood a young man Dooku recognized as Skywalker, but older, corrupted. And then he felt it. Sith lightning, not from an enemy, but from his master. Palpatine's voice echoed, "Kill him, Anakin. Kill him now." And then Dooku felt his own head separate from his body. The vision ended as abruptly as it began. Dooku staggered backward, his hand instinctively going to his throat. Around him, everyone watched in confusion, unaware of what he'd just experienced. "That's your future," Q whispered, though his words seemed to echo in Dooku's mind alone. 6 months from now, give or take. Your master will sacrifice you to corrupt the Chosen One. You're expendable. You've always been expendable." Dooku's rage exploded outward in a wave of dark side energy that shattered crystal structures for 100 meters. "Lies!" "Are they?" Q asked innocently. "Tell me, has Sidious ever truly valued you? Or are you just another tool, like those droids you command?" Before Dooku could respond, the maze walls began moving, grinding forward with inexorable force. Clone troopers screamed as Force visions continued to overwhelm them. Droids wandered aimlessly, questioning their existence. "Timer starts now," Q announced. "Find the stabilizers, survive the maze, and maybe, I'll consider letting you all continue this adorable little war of yours. Oh, and Count, think about what I showed you. We'll talk again soon." Q vanished. Anakin looked at Obi-Wan, then at Ahsoka, then at the maze closing in around them, and the suffering clones who needed their help. Captain Rex was on his knees, blood trickling from his nose as his mind struggled to process Force abilities his body was never meant to have. "We move," Anakin commanded. "Together, we save as many as we can." "Agreed," Obi-Wan said, igniting his lightsaber. "But Anakin, what that being did to Dooku, whatever he showed him, it's destabilized everything." Ahsoka looked up at the sky where Q had been. "Masters? What if he's telling the truth? About all of it?" The maze walls ground closer. The timer ticked down. And somewhere in the shifting labyrinth, Dooku stood alone, his faith in his master crumbling, his future uncertain, and a single question burning in his mind. What if the omnipotent creature was right? The maze was alive. Anakin sprinted through corridors of crystal that shifted and reformed every 60 seconds, his lightsaber ignited and ready. Behind him, Obi-Wan supported Captain Rex, while Ahsoka guided a squad of Force-sensitive clones who could barely walk without accidentally launching themselves into walls with telekinetic bursts. "Left!" Anakin shouted. sensing danger through the Force a split second before a wall of crystals slammed down where they'd been standing. The entire structure groaned and reconfigured, pathways closing, new routes opening, the geometry impossible and ever-changing. Rex gasped, his eyes unfocused. "Sir, I can feel everything, every clone on this planet. They're all screaming in my head. I can feel their fear, their confusion." "Focus on my voice, Rex," Obi-Wan commanded, his tone firm but compassionate. "The Force is overwhelming you because you have no training. Build walls in your mind. Imagine barriers between you and those sensations." "How?" Rex choked out. "How do I—" A massive crystalline construct burst from the floor ahead. Something that looked like a cross between a separatist droideka and a Christophsis native creature, except it was entirely made of living crystal. Its optical sensors glowed with malevolent red light, and it raised appendages that crackled with energy. "Obstacle!" Ahsoka yelled unnecessarily. The creature fired, not blaster bolts, beams of pure crystallized light that could slice through durasteel. Anakin deflected one with his lightsaber, but the impact sent him skidding backward. The Force screamed a warning, and he dove right as another beam carved through the space where he'd stood. "Ahsoka, get the clones to cover," Anakin ordered. "Obi-Wan." "Already on it," his master replied, using the Force to collapse a crystal wall onto the construct. It shattered the creature's left side, but the crystals simply reformed, regenerating the damage in seconds. "Of course Q would make them regenerate," Obi-Wan muttered. Anakin felt the Force flow through him as he leaped over the creature, his lightsaber carving through its core in a spinning arc. For a moment, the construct froze, then exploded outward in a shower of crystal shards. Where it had stood, a small device pulsed with soft blue light. "The stabilizer!" Anakin grabbed it and rushed back to Rex. The moment the device touched the clone captain's armor, it activated, releasing a wave of energy that seemed to create a buffer between Rex's mind and the overwhelming Force connections. Rex's breathing steadied. The blood stopped flowing from his nose. "Sir, I can still feel it, but it's manageable now." "How many of these do we need?" Ahsoka asked, helping two clones who were convulsing with Force lightning. "Too many," Obi-Wan said grimly, sensing the scope of the maze through the Force. "And we have less than 90 minutes remaining." The walls shifted again. Suddenly, they were in a chamber with dozens of pathways branching in every direction, and in the center stood another stabilizer, but guarding it was something that made even Anakin pause. A figure made entirely of solidified Force energy, glowing with both light and dark sides simultaneously. It held a lightsaber of pure Force power, neither blue nor red, but shifting between colors. "Q's really showing off now," Anakin muttered. The construct attacked without warning, moving with impossible speed. Anakin barely blocked the first strike, and the impact sent shockwaves through his arms. This wasn't like fighting a droid or even a Sith. This thing fought with the collective knowledge of every lightsaber form simultaneously. Obi-Wan joined the fight, his defensive Soresu form creating a protective barrier while Anakin went on the offensive. They moved in perfect synchronization, master and apprentice flowing around each other like water. But the Force construct adapted to every move, countered every strike. "It's learning from us," Obi-Wan warned. "Then we stop being predictable." Anakin switched from Jem-So to Ataru mid-strike, his unpredictability throwing off the construct's pattern recognition. His lightsaber carved through the entity's shoulder, and it stumbled, then regenerated. "Oh, come on!" Ahsoka shouted from behind them, using the Force to shield the wounded clones from falling debris as the chamber began collapsing. Anakin felt rage building in his chest. Q was toying with them, making this impossible by design. Every obstacle regenerated, every path changed, every second brought them closer to failure. He reached deeper into the Force, drawing on his anger, his frustration. "Anakin, no!" Obi-Wan sensed the shift immediately. "Don't let him manipulate you into the dark side." But Anakin was already moving, channeling his emotions into raw power. He unleashed a force push so powerful it didn't just knock back the construct. It shattered the crystal walls around them, revealing 3 more chambers with 3 more stabilizers. And standing in one of those chambers was Count Dooku, holding a stabilizer and staring at it with an expression Anakin had never seen on the Sith Lord's face. Doubt. Their eyes met across the shattered maze. "Skywalker," Dooku said quietly. Then, louder. "Did Q show you anything? Any visions?" "What are you talking about?" Anakin demanded, his lightsaber raised. "He showed me my death," Dooku said, and his voice carried a weight that made even Obi-Wan pause. "Killed by you, on orders from my master. Tell me, Chosen One, did he show you your future?" Anakin felt cold dread in his stomach. "No." "Then perhaps you should ask yourself why." Dooku raised his lightsaber, but his stance was defensive, not aggressive. "Q isn't just testing our ability to survive this maze. He's testing whether we're smart enough to see the real game." "And what game is that?" Obi-Wan asked carefully, positioning himself between Anakin and Dooku. "He's showing us that our destinies aren't fixed," Dooku said. "That prophecies can be broken. That the grand designs we've built our lives around, Jedi prophecy, Sith planning, are just stories we tell ourselves." He looked directly at Anakin. "He showed me that in 6 months, Sidious will betray me to turn you into his new apprentice. So I ask you, Skywalker, is that your destiny? Or can an omnipotent being rewrite fate?" Before Anakin could respond, Q materialized between them, applauding slowly. "Excellent!" Q beamed with genuine delight. "The Sith Lord is starting to think critically. See, this is what I hoped for. Actual evolution beyond your programmed responses." He turned to Anakin. "What about you, Chosen One? Want to see your future? I can show you what happens if you follow the path the Force has chosen for you." "Don't listen to him," Obi-Wan warned. "He's trying to manipulate." Q snapped his fingers. Suddenly, Anakin was somewhere else. A volcanic planet, his body burning. A figure in a dark hood standing over him. He heard his own voice, distorted by a mechanical respirator. "I hate you." And Obi-Wan's reply, full of anguish. "You were my brother, Anakin." The vision ended. Anakin staggered, horror and confusion flooding through him. What was that?" "Your future," Q said simply. "If you stay on your current path, betrayal, tragedy, becoming the very thing you swore to destroy. Dramatic, really, very operatic." He looked at both Anakin and Dooku. "But here's the question that makes this experiment interesting. Now that you both know what's coming, will you change it? Can you change it? Or does fate, whether through the Force or Sith planning, always win?" The maze began collapsing around them, walls grinding inward as the timer ticked towards 0. "Choose quickly," Q suggested. "Save your men, fight each other, or start asking the right questions. Personally, I'm hoping for option 3. It's far more entertaining." He vanished, leaving a Jedi and a Sith Lord staring at each other, both having seen futures they desperately wanted to prevent. The maze gave them 30 seconds to decide. Anakin looked at Dooku. Dooku looked at Anakin. Between them, stabilizers pulsed with light that could save dying clones and newly conscious droids. Around them, crystal walls ground inward with mechanical inevitability. "Temporary truce," Dooku said, his lightsaber still ignited but lowered. "We save who we can, then we resume our war." "You expect me to trust a Sith?" Anakin shot back. "I expect you to be pragmatic, Skywalker." Q has made us both irrelevant to our respective masters' plans. The question is whether we're intelligent enough to recognize it. Obi-Wan stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts warring with Jedi doctrine. Anakin, the clones are dying. We can debate philosophy after we save lives. Anakin hated it, but his master was right. He grabbed 2 stabilizers and tossed one to Ahsoka. Get these to the clones. Move fast. We've got seconds. They scattered in different directions. Anakin sprinted through collapsing corridors, using the Force to sense clusters of clones. He found a group of 5 troopers huddled against a wall, their bodies sparking with uncontrolled Force lightning. The moment he pressed the stabilizer to the nearest clone's chest, it expanded outward in a wave, covering all 5. Their convulsions stopped. Their screaming ceased. "Can you move?" Anakin asked. "Sir, yes, sir," one clone gasped. "But the others, there are hundreds of us scattered through this maze." Anakin's jaw clenched. Q had designed this to be impossible. Too many victims, too little time, too few stabilizers. It was a test designed to break them, to prove that even the Chosen One had limits. A massive explosion rocked the maze. Through the Force, Anakin felt Dooku's presence. The Count had just destroyed an entire section of the labyrinth to reach a cluster of battle droids. The newly conscious machines were screaming in their mechanical way. Overwhelmed by existential questions their programming was never meant to process. "Is this what organic life is? One droid wailed. "Confusion and fear?" "Apparently," Dooku replied coldly, activating a stabilizer. The device's energy washed over the droids, and their optical sensors brightened with something resembling clarity. "Now move before you're crushed." 20 seconds remaining. Ahsoka reached a group of clones who'd accidentally brought down a crystal pillar on themselves. She used the Force to lift the rubble, her mantra sensing their fading life forces. "Hold on, just hold on." The stabilizer activated, and 3 clones gasped back to consciousness, but 2 didn't move. 2 were already gone. Their minds burned out by Force power their bodies couldn't contain. Ahsoka felt tears on her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." 10 seconds. Obi-Wan found himself in a chamber with both clones and droids, enemies forced together by Q's chaos. The droids looked at him with new awareness, and one B-1 unit actually raised its hands in surrender. "Please," it said, its vocabulary trembling. "I don't want to die. I just learned what it means to be alive. Is that fair?" Obi-Wan had no answer. He activated the stabilizer, and its energy covered both clones and droids indiscriminately. Life was life, he decided. The Force didn't discriminate, and neither would he. 5 seconds. Anakin used the Force to launch himself toward the maze's center, where he sensed the largest concentration of victims. He wouldn't make it. There wasn't enough time. But he stretched out with the Force anyway, pouring everything he had into one desperate push. The maze vanished. Everyone, Jedi, Sith, clones, droids, suddenly found themselves standing on an open plain of crystal. The labyrinth was simply gone, replaced by a vast arena. Above them, Q materialized, sitting on a throne made of frozen starlight. "Time's up," he announced cheerfully. "Let's see the results, shall we?" Holographic displays appeared, showing statistics that made Anakin's blood run cold. Of the 2,847 clones who'd been given Force sensitivity, 1,923 had been stabilized. The rest were either dead or permanently damaged, their minds shattered by power they couldn't control. Of the 4,231 battle droids granted consciousness, 3,108 had been saved. The remainder had experienced cascading logic failures and shut down permanently, the droid equivalent of death. "Interesting data," Q mused. examining the results like a scientist reviewing an experiment. The clones had a lower survival rate despite having organic brains theoretically compatible with ForceNet's sensitivity. The droids, being machines, adapted better to sudden consciousness than biological beings adapted to mystical power. Conclusion: the Force isn't as natural as you Jedi claim. It's just another form of programming. You killed over 900 beings to prove a point. Obi-Wan's voice was ice. I killed no one, Q countered. Their own limitations killed them. I simply exposed those limitations. And before you get righteous Jedi, your order has sent thousands to their deaths in this war. At least my experiment had scientific value. Anakin ignited his lightsaber and launched himself at Q with pure rage fueling his movements. He crossed 50 meters in a heartbeat. His blade aimed directly at Q's throat. Q caught the lightsaber blade with his bare hand. "Oh, please," Q said, sounding genuinely disappointed. "Did you really think that would work? I exist outside your cute little energy field. The Force can't touch me, which means Force users can't truly threaten me." He casually pushed Anakin backward with one finger, sending the Chosen One tumbling across the crystal ground. Dooku stepped forward, his own rage barely contained. "What do you want from us? Now that's the question." Q released Anakin's lightsaber and leaned forward on his throne. "I want to see if you can evolve. I want to know if beings who worship destiny can break free of it. So here's your next test. A simple one, really." He waved his hand, and suddenly the entire Jedi Council appeared on the platform. Yoda, Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and others. But they weren't alone. Standing opposite them was Emperor Palpatine himself, still wearing his Supreme Chancellor disguise, but emanating dark side energy that made every Jedi's lightsaber hum with warning. "Both sides of your cosmic war in one place," Q announced. "The Jedi Council and the secret Sith Lord who's been manipulating everything. I have made it impossible for anyone to leave this arena until you resolve this. Philosophically or violently, I don't care which." Yoda's eyes widened as he stared at Palpatine. "Darth Sidious?" "You are..." Palpatine's friendly mask cracked, revealing something ancient and malevolent beneath. "Clever creature you are, but premature this revelation is." "Is it?" Q materialized between them. "See? I'm curious what happens when your 1,000-year plan gets exposed a few years early. Do the Jedi win? Does the Sith Lord talk his way out? Or," he looked directly at Anakin, "does the Chosen One choose neither and forge his own path?" Mace Windu's hand went to his lightsaber. "You're under arrest, Chancellor." Palpatine laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Arrest? You fool. I am the Senate. I am the Republic. I've been both sides of this war from the beginning." "Prove it," Q challenged. "Show them what you really are, Sheev. No more hiding." Lightning erupted from Palpatine's hands. Not restraining, not careful, pure Sith fury that carved through the air toward the Jedi Council. The Masters raised their lightsabers, deflecting the attack, and suddenly, the arena erupted into chaos. Anakin stood frozen, his mind reeling. The Chancellor, kind, supportive Palpatine who'd been his friend for years, was a Sith Lord. The enemy, the orchestrator of everything. And Q had just forced everyone into open war. Palpatine's Sith lightning carved through the air like rivers of hatred made manifest. Mace Windu deflected the attack with Vapad, his purple blade absorbing and redirecting the dark side energy. Ki-Adi-Mundi and Plo Koon moved to flank, their lightsabers igniting in a coordinated assault pattern perfected over centuries of Jedi training. But Palpatine was ready. He'd been ready for decades. The Supreme Chancellor's body contorted, his friendly mask literally peeling away to reveal yellow Sith eyes burning with ancient fury. His movements became a blur, faster than any normal being should move, as he drew a crimson lightsaber from beneath his robes and met Windu's strike with a shriek of clashing plasma. "You should have stayed blind, Jedi," Palpatine snarled, his voice now carrying the full weight of Darth Sidious. "My plan was perfect. Decades of manipulation, and this creature ruins it for entertainment." Yoda launched himself forward, his small green form spinning through the air like a miniature tornado of light-side energy. His lightsaber struck Sidious's blade with enough force to crack the crystal ground beneath them. "Underestimated us, you have, and now your reign of darkness must." Sidious laughed even as he parried Yoda's strikes. "And, old fool, it's barely begun. I have armies. I control the Republic. I have—" "Nothing," Q interrupted, materializing, sitting cross-legged in midair between the combatants. Everyone froze as if time itself had stopped, except it hadn't. They could think, could breathe, but couldn't move. "See, that's what I find fascinating about you, Sheev. You spent decades planning, manipulating, positioning pieces on a galactic chessboard. But what happens when someone flips the table?" Q snapped his fingers, and everyone could move again. But the arena had changed. Now it was divided into sections by walls of pure energy, separating fighters into isolated battlegrounds. Anakin found himself in one section with Palpatine, just the two of them. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka were trapped together in another, facing a massive construct made of dark side energy. Yoda and Mace Windu stood in a third section with Dooku, who looked between the Jedi Masters and his former Jedi identity with an expression of profound conflict. "Individual trials," Q announced from above. "Let's see who you really are when stripped of your comfortable alliances. Anakin, face the man who would make you his apprentice. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, prove the Jedi way can triumph over darkness without killing. Yoda and Windu, decide if a fallen Jedi can be redeemed or must be destroyed. You have 10 minutes. Begin." The energy wall solidified, cutting off any possibility of help. In Anakin's section, Palpatine deactivated his lightsaber and let his grandfatherly mask partially return, the face Anakin had trusted for years. "My boy," Palpatine said softly, "this isn't how I wanted you to learn the truth." "You're a Sith Lord," Anakin said, his voice hollow. "You've been lying to me since we met." "No." Palpatine stepped closer, his hands open in a gesture of peace. "Everything I told you was true, from a certain point of view. The Jedi are dogmatic. They do fear your power. They would hold you back from achieving your true potential. You started this war," Anakin countered, his lightsaber trembling in his hand. "Millions have died because of you." "Millions would have died regardless," Palpatine replied calmly. "The Republic was rotting from within. Corruption, bureaucracy, endless committees accomplishing nothing. I will bring order, security, peace through strength. And you, Anakin, you could help me build something better than this failed democracy." Anakin felt the dark side calling to him, whispering that Palpatine's words made sense. The Republic was corrupt. The Jedi Council did hold him back, but he also remembered the vision Q had shown him, burning on a volcanic world, transformed into something mechanical and hateful. "Is that what happens if I join you?" Anakin asked. "I become a monster?" Palpatine's eyes narrowed. "What did that creature show you?" "My future, betrayed, burning, serving you as something less than human." "Then change it," Palpatine said simply. "Q himself said destinies can be broken. Join me willingly as an equal, and we'll forge a different path." Or strike me down and watch the galaxy descend into chaos without anyone strong enough to rule it. Anakin's lightsaber wavered. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka faced their opponent, a towering construct of pure dark side energy that wore the faces of fallen Jedi, their features shifting and morphing in constant agony. "Master!" "How do we fight that?" Ahsoka asked, her twin lightsabers raised defensively. "We don't," Obi-Wan replied, his mind racing through options. "Q said to prove the Jedi way can triumph without killing. This creature is made of dark side energy, of pain, fear, and hatred. We don't fight it, we heal it." "Heal it? How?" "The Force isn't just a weapon, Ahsoka. It's life itself." Obi-Wan deactivated his lightsaber and sat down in a meditation pose, even as the construct lumbered toward them. "Join me. We project light side energy, peace, compassion. We show it there's another way." Ahsoka hesitated, watching the monster approach. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to defend, to attack. But she trusted her master. She sat beside him, crossed her legs, and reached into the Force. Together, they became beacons of light side energy. The construct roared, its dark side nature recoiling from their presence. But Obi-Wan and Ahsoka didn't attack. They simply existed in perfect harmony with the Force, offering an alternative to rage and pain. The creature's advance slowed. The shifting faces began to still, finding peace. In the third section, Dooku stood between Yoda and Mace Windu. 3 lightsabers ignited, a triangle of barely restrained violence. "Kill him," Windu said to Yoda, his voice flat. "He's fallen too far. He orchestrated atrocities. But redeemed he could be," Yoda replied, his ancient eyes studying his former apprentice. "Once, the greatest Jedi he was. Loved him, I did." Dooku laughed bitterly. "Love? The Jedi forbid attachment, Master. You taught me that lesson well." "We forbid possessive attachment," Yoda corrected. "Compassion we embrace." "Failed you, I did. Pushed you toward darkness through rigidity. Admit this, I do." Windu's jaw clenched. This is exactly what Q wants. Us doubting ourselves, showing mercy to the enemy. Dooku made his choice when he became Darth Tyrannus. Did I? Dooku lowered his lightsaber slightly. Or did the Jedi Order's failures make that choice for me? I saw corruption in the Republic and tried to warn you. I saw the Jedi becoming soldiers instead of peacekeepers. Was I wrong? You murdered innocents, Windu said coldly. And you lead an army of slave soldiers created in secret, Dooku shot back. Where was the Council's moral clarity when accepting the clone army, when becoming generals in a war? Yoda's ears drooped. Right, he is. Compromised ourselves we have. Lost our way, the Order has. So, what now? Dooku asked. Do you kill me and prove might makes right? Do you try to redeem me and prove the Jedi way works? Or do we acknowledge that maybe neither Jedi nor Sith have the answers, and Q has exposed that truth? Mace Windu's lightsaber didn't waver, but for the first time in decades, his absolute certainty cracked slightly above them all. Q watched with genuine fascination, taking notes on a clipboard that appeared from nowhere. Excellent, he murmured. The prophecy child tempted by pragmatic evil. The peacekeepers learning that not all battles require violence. The fallen Jedi forcing his former masters to question their righteousness. This is exactly the kind of evolution I hope to see. He checked his pocket watch, another affectation, since he existed outside time. 5 minutes remaining. Let's see who breaks first. Anakin's lightsaber burned blue in his hands, pointed at the man who had been his mentor, his friend, his confidant for years. Palpatine stood 5 meters away, unarmed now, his expression one of patient understanding. "Strike me down if you must," Palpatine said quietly, "but know that my death solves nothing. The Separatists will continue their war, the Republic will fracture without strong leadership, and the Jedi Order will become exactly what I warned you about: tyrants who enforce their will through force powers." "You're manipulating me," Anakin said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm offering you a choice," Palpatine corrected. "Something the Jedi Council never does. They tell you what to think, how to feel, whom to love. I'm giving you freedom." The word hit Anakin like a physical blow. Freedom. Wasn't that what he'd wanted since childhood? He'd been a slave, then a Padawan bound by the Jedi Code, then a knight still constrained by rules and prophecies. When had he ever been truly free? "I can sense your conflict," Palpatine continued, taking a step closer. "You love Senator Amidala. The Council would exile you if they knew. I've always known, and I've protected that secret because I believe in your right to love, to form attachments, to be human." Anakin's lightsaber lowered an inch. "But there's something Q showed you, isn't there?" Palpatine's eyes gleamed. "Something about your future. Tell me, my boy, in that vision, did you choose power to save someone you loved?" Anakin's eyes widened. How could Palpatine know that? But of course he knew. Sith Lords understood the dark side's seductive whispers better than anyone. "If I showed you how to prevent death itself," Palpatine said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "would that make me evil? Or would denying you that knowledge make the Jedi evil?" Before Anakin could answer, Q appeared between them, holding a bowl of popcorn. "Ooh, this is the good part," Q said, munching enthusiastically. "The moral complexity, the temptation. Don't mind me. Continue." "Get out of here," Anakin shouted. "Make me," Q challenged. "Oh wait, you can't. I'm omnipotent, remember?" He looked at Palpatine. "You know what's funny, Sheev? You think you're in control here, but you're just as much a puppet as everyone else. The dark side has been using you as much as you've used others." Palpatine's friendly mask cracked, revealing pure hatred. "I am the dark side." "No. You're a talented mortal who tapped into an energy field," Q corrected, finishing his popcorn. The bowl vanished. "But here's what I find truly interesting. You both assume the Force has good and evil sides. What if it's just power, and morality is something you project onto it?" He snapped his fingers, and suddenly Anakin could see threads of energy connecting everything, the Force made visible. He saw light and dark flowing through all living things, through Palpatine, through himself, through the very air. And he saw that they weren't separate. They were one continuous spectrum, like a gradient rather than two opposing forces. "Choose quickly, chosen one," Q said, vanishing again. 2 minutes left. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka remained in meditation, their combined light side presence growing stronger with each breath. The dark side construct loomed over them, its massive form beginning to crack like glass under pressure. "It's working, Master," Ahsoka said, feeling the creature's resistance weakening. "Don't celebrate yet," Obi-Wan replied calmly. "Darkness doesn't surrender easily. It transforms, adapts. Stay centered." The construct suddenly split apart, reforming into dozens of smaller entities that surrounded them from all sides. Each one wore a face Ahsoka recognized. Clones who'd died in the maze. Droids who'd gained consciousness only to be crushed. Innocents killed by Q's games. "Master, they're illusions designed to break our concentration," Obi-Wan said firmly. "Q is testing whether we'll abandon compassion when faced with guilt. Don't let him win." But Ahsoka felt tears streaming down her face as she looked at the clone troopers she hadn't saved. The beings who died because she wasn't fast enough, strong enough. I failed them. We all fail sometimes, Obi-Wan said gently, his eyes still closed. The question is whether we let that failure define us or teach us. Channel your grief into compassion. Feel the pain, accept it, and let it make you stronger, not through revenge, but through understanding. Ahsoka took a shuddering breath and did as her master instructed. She felt the loss, acknowledged it, and transformed it into a deeper connection to the Force. Her light side energy intensified, washing over the guilt constructs like warm sunlight. They began to dissolve, their faces finding peace as they faded. Dooku stood motionless, his lightsaber still ignited, watching Yoda and Mace Windu debate his fate. "The boy makes a point," Yoda admitted, his voice heavy with centuries of accumulated wisdom and regret. "Blind we have been. To corruption, to our own failings. Perhaps fallen Dooku has, because failed him first, we did. That doesn't excuse his crimes," Windu argued, though his certainty was crumbling. "He's killed Jedi. He's orchestrated the deaths of millions. And we've led armies of slave soldiers into battles we're not certain we should be fighting," Dooku said quietly. "Tell me, Master Windu, how many clones have died under your command? Do you know their names? Or are they just expendable resources?" Windu's jaw clenched. "They're soldiers who volunteered. They're property created in laboratories." Dooku's voice rose. "They have inhibitor chips in their brains that remove free will. How is that different from slavery? From the very thing the Jedi claim to oppose?" Yoda struck the ground with his staff, silencing them both. "Enough! Right you both are. Wrong you both are. This is what Q wants us to see. That absolute certainty blinds us all. Jedi, Sith, Republic, Separatists. All believe they serve the greater good. All commit atrocities in that belief." The ancient Jedi Master deactivated his lightsaber. "Choose I cannot," Yoda admitted. "Kill you I should. Redeem you I wish to. But trapped between doctrine and compassion, I am. Perhaps this is why failed, the Jedi Order has." Dooku stared at his former master, seeing for the first time in decades the being who had once taught him everything. Not a symbol of Jedi dogma, but a person struggling with impossible choices. Mace Windu watched them both, his purple lightsaber still burning. His Va-Pod form channeled dark side energy through the light. He walked the edge between both sides of the Force every day. He, more than anyone, understood the seduction of power balanced against principle. His lightsaber lowered, but didn't deactivate. "If we let you live," Windu said slowly, "what would you do?" Dooku considered the question honestly. "I don't know. For the first time in years, I genuinely don't know." Q materialized among them, applauding slowly. "Beautiful! Uncertainty! Growth! This is exactly what I wanted to see." He checked his watch. "And time's up. Let's see the results." The energy walls dissolved. Anakin stood with his lightsaber at his side, neither having struck down Palpatine nor joined him, simply refusing to choose the binary option. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka remained in meditation, surrounded by fading light side energy. The dark construct completely dissolved. Yoda, Windu, and Dooku stood in a triangle, weapons lowered but not sheathed, locked in uncertain truce. "Fascinating data," Q mused, reviewing his notes. "The Chosen One rejects destiny. The Peacekeepers prove compassion trumps violence. The fallen Jedi makes the righteous question their righteousness. You're all evolving beyond your programming." He clapped his hands once, and suddenly they were all standing together again. The arena's divisions removed. "Congratulations," Q said with genuine warmth. "You've passed Phase 2. Now comes the really interesting part." He gestured, and in the distance, an entire separatist fleet appeared in orbit, facing a Republic armada. "I've just informed both sides that this planet contains a weapon that can end the war instantly. Complete victory for whoever claims it first. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Q grinned. "The weapon is real, by the way. I've hidden it somewhere on Christophsis. Find it before they glass the planet looking for it." "What kind of weapon?" Obi-Wan demanded. Q's smile widened impossibly. "One that can erase Force sensitivity from any being I choose. Imagine a galaxy without Jedi or Sith, just mortals, deciding their own fate without mystical powers to tip the scales." Horror spread across every face, Jedi and Sith alike. 29 minutes, Q announced cheerfully. "Better start looking." He vanished, leaving them in the shadow of approaching fleet. The sky above Christophsis darkened as Republican Separatist fleets moved into attack positions. Anakin felt them through the Force. Thousands of clone troopers and battle droids preparing for orbital bombardment. Fighter squadrons launching, capital ships charging their weapons. 28 minutes until they started shooting. "We need to find that weapon," Mace Windu said, his tactical mind already calculating search patterns. "If it falls into Separatist hands, or Republic hands," Dooku interrupted. "Do you think I trust your order with the power to erase Force sensitivity? You'd use it on every dark side user in the galaxy. Wouldn't you do the same to us?" Ahsoka challenged. "Enough!" Yoda's voice cut through the argument. "Time for debate we do not have. Work together. We must. Find this weapon. Prevent its use by anyone." Palpatine laughed darkly, his Sith identity now fully exposed. "You naive fools. Q has already won. Whether we find the weapon or not, this situation fractures everything. The Jedi are revealed as warriors, not peacekeepers. I'm exposed as Sidious before my plans mature, and both fleets will level this planet rather than let the enemy claim such power." "Then we destroy it," Anakin said firmly. "We find Q's weapon and destroy it before anyone can use it." "Can you destroy something created by an omnipotent being?" Obi-Wan asked quietly. "Would he even let us?" As if summoned by the question, Q appeared lounging on a hovering couch that materialized from nowhere. "Destroy it? You could try. That's actually a valid solution I hadn't considered. How delightfully unpredictable." "Where is it?" Anakin demanded. "Now what fun would I be if I just told you?" Q produced a crystalline device that pulsed with strange energy. "But I'll give you a hint. It's hidden in plain sight, protected by something none of you want to face." The device projected a holographic image of Christophsis' crystalline structures, but one building in the city's center glowed with an ominous red light. It was a medical station, still filled with wounded clones and civilians from the battle. "You put it in a hospital?" Ahsoka's voice was horrified. "I put it somewhere that would force you to confront your values," Q corrected. "See, the weapon is in the sub-basement, but I've also placed an energy field around the building. The moment any Force user enters, the field activates. It won't hurt the building or the people inside, but it will accelerate. Every minute you spend searching becomes an hour for everyone inside. A 10-minute search means 10 hours without food, water, or medical care for the wounded." Obi-Wan's expression hardened. "You'd torture innocents to prove a point? I'd create a moral dilemma to see what you value more, stopping a hypothetical threat or preventing immediate suffering." Q stood from his couch, which vanished. 26 minutes until the fleets opened fire. You could evacuate the hospital first, but that takes time you don't have. You could send non-Force users, but they'd never find the weapon in the maze of corridors I've created. Or, he smiled, you could work together, Jedi and Sith, Master and Apprentice, Republic and Separatist, and prove that cooperation trumps ideology. Palpatine's eyes narrowed. And if we refuse to play your game? Then both fleets bombard the planet. Everyone dies. And I learned that your species values pride over survival. Q shrugged. Either way, I get fascinating data. He vanished. Anakin immediately started running toward the medical station, but Obi-Wan's hand on his shoulder stopped him. Wait, his master said. We need a plan. Rushing in makes the situation worse. People are dying, Anakin protested. And they'll die faster if we trigger Q's trap unprepared, Obi-Wan replied. He looked at the assembled group, Jedi Masters, a Sith Lord, a corrupted Chancellor, Padawan, and surviving clones. We need to divide responsibilities. Some evacuate the hospital, others search for the weapon. We coordinate so no one spends more time inside than necessary. I'll search, Dooku said immediately. I'm expendable compared to the Jedi Council. If I'm erased from the Force, the galaxy loses one Sith. If you lose Yoda or Windu, the Jedi Order collapses. Yoda studied his former apprentice. Noble sentiment this is, but trust you completely, I cannot. Then don't trust me. Use me, Dooku replied. I'll go in first. Trigger the time dilation and search the most dangerous sections. If I find the weapon, I'll signal. If I betray you... He handed his lightsaber to Yoda. Kill me with my own blade. The gesture hung in the air, shocking everyone. A Sith Lord surrendering his weapon was unthinkable. Mace Windu broke the silence. I'll go with him. If Dooku betrays us, I'll stop him before he can use the weapon. Master Windu, Ahsoka started. It's logical, Windu interrupted. Yoda needs to coordinate the evacuation. Obi-Wan must negotiate with the fleets. Anakin. He looked at the Chosen One. You're too valuable and too unpredictable. Stay here. Anakin's frustration burned through his Force presence, but he nodded reluctantly. Palpatine watched the exchange with barely concealed fury. His carefully laid plans were unraveling, and now the Jedi were organizing a response that might actually work. And what of me? He asked coldly. The revealed Sith Master? You stay where I can see you, Anakin said, his hand on his lightsaber. One wrong move? You'll what? Kill the Supreme Chancellor? Palpatine's smile was dangerous. The Republic would fracture instantly. The Separatists would claim victory. Everything would collapse. Maybe it should, Anakin shot back. Maybe Q's right that we're all trapped in systems that don't work. 23 minutes. Obi-Wan pulled out his comlink, opening channels to both fleets simultaneously. This is General Kenobi to all Republic and Separatist forces. I am broadcasting on all frequencies. Hold your fire. I repeat, hold your fire. We have Jedi and Sith working together to secure the weapon. Bombardment will kill everyone on the surface, including your ground forces. Static. Then Admiral Yularen's voice crackled through. General, we have orders to secure or destroy the weapon by any means necessary. Those orders come from the Supreme Chancellor himself. Obi-Wan looked at Palpatine. Would you like to rescind those orders, Chancellor? Palpatine's expression was unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, Admiral Yularen, delay bombardment. Give them 20 minutes. It was a calculated move. Palpatine giving just enough cooperation to seem reasonable while ensuring the deadline remained impossibly tight. Thank you, Chancellor, Obi-Wan said, though his tone suggested he understood the manipulation. On the Separatist channel, General Grievous's mechanical voice responded. Count Dooku, confirm your status. Are you in Jedi custody? Dooku took the comlink. I am, cooperating with the Jedi temporarily. General, hold position. I will secure the weapon for the Separatist cause. A lie, but one that bought time. Grievous's skepticism was audible through the static. "You have 15 minutes, Count. Then I will assume you've been compromised and will proceed with bombardment." The comlink went dead. 15 minutes, Mace Windu said grimly. He looked at Dooku. "Can you do this?" Dooku picked up his lightsaber from where Yoda had set it. "I was a Jedi for 70 years before I fell. Perhaps it's time to remember those lessons." Together, Windu and Dooku ran toward the medical station. The moment they crossed the threshold, both Jedi and Sith felt the temporal field activate. Through the Force, those outside sensed time stretching, warping, accelerating for everyone inside the building. Yoda closed his eyes, coordinating with clone commanders to begin emergency evacuation protocols. Ahsoka helped direct civilians away from the building, and Anakin stood watching Palpatine, caught between duty and the temptation that whispered that maybe, just maybe, the Sith Lord's vision of order wasn't entirely wrong. Above them, both fleets waited with weapons charged. Q watched from a dimensional plane none of them could perceive, taking notes and smiling. Mace Windu felt time distort the moment he crossed the hospital threshold. His heart rate tripled, his breathing accelerated, every second stretching into subjective minutes. Beside him, Dooku experienced the same warping. They'd entered Q's temporal trap. The hospital corridors were crystal and metal, lined with medical pods containing wounded clones and civilians. As Windu and Dooku rushed past, they saw patients stirring restlessly, their IV fluids draining faster, their wounds degrading without proper care intervals. "Sub-basement," Dooku said, already moving toward the turbo lifts. "We have minutes outside, hours in here." "Stay focused," Windu replied, his Vapod form keeping his connection to the Force razor sharp, despite the temporal distortion. "Q said it's hidden in plain sight and protected by something we don't want to face." The turbo lift descended 3 levels. When the doors opened, both men stopped. The sub-basement wasn't a storage area. It was an arena. And standing in the center, surrounded by the pulsing, crystalline device that was clearly Q's weapon, were 3 figures that made even Windu's iron discipline waver. Qui-Gon Jinn, Even Piell, Yaddle, all dead Jedi now standing as perfect constructs of Force energy. "Ah," Dooku breathed, genuine pain crossing his face. "My former master. Of course, Q would use him." Qui-Gon's image spoke with his exact voice. "Padawan, you've fallen so far. I taught you better than this." "You're not real," Dooku said, but his lightsaber hand trembled. "You're a construct designed to break my concentration." "Does it matter?" Qui-Gon replied. "If I make you feel the shame you've earned? If I remind you of the Jedi you betrayed?" Mace Windu stepped forward, addressing the constructs with a master's authority. "We don't have time for Q's psychological warfare. Stand aside or be destroyed." The 3 dead Jedi ignited lightsabers, not constructs, but real weapons pulled from Force memory, burning with the same colors they'd wielded in life. "You'll have to go through us," Yaddle said in her soft voice. "Prove you're worthy of this weapon. Prove the living deserve it more than those you've let die." Windu and Dooku exchanged glances. Outside, 13 minutes remained. Inside, they'd already burned through nearly an hour of subjective time. Patients upstairs were suffering. "Together," Windu said. It wasn't a question. "Together," Dooku agreed. They attacked as one. Vapod's aggressive adaptation meeting Makashi's elegant precision. The dead Jedi met them with their remembered skills. Qui-Gon's Ataru, Yaddle's unique style, Piell's Shien. The sub-basement erupted with clashing plasma blades and Force energy. Windu channeled his opponent's dark side energy through his Vapod form. turning Dooku's nearby Sith presence into strength. Ironically, fighting alongside a Sith Lord made Windu's light side technique more powerful. Dooku fought with desperate precision, each strike at Qui-Gon's construct carrying decades of guilt and rage. "You abandoned me," he shouted, his blade locking with his former master's. "You left the Order to chase your visions while I tried to fix it from within." "Where were you when I needed guidance?" "I was following the will of the Force," Qui-Gon's construct replied. "Something you stopped doing when you chose ambition over wisdom." The word struck deeper than any lightsaber. Dooku faltered, and Qui-Gon's blade came within inches of his throat. Mace Windu's purple blade intercepted, saving the Sith Lord's life. "Stay focused, Count," Windu commanded. "He's trying to break you mentally. Don't let Q win." Dooku nodded, his face hardening with resolve. Together, they pressed their assault. Windu's Vapad created openings that Dooku's Makashi exploited with surgical precision. 2 living Force users fighting in perfect synchronization against 3 dead legends. Outside the hospital, 10 minutes remained. Inside, 3 subjective hours had passed. Medical staff were collapsing from exhaustion. Patients were coding without proper care intervals. Yoda coordinated evacuation, but it wasn't fast enough. Anakin felt every life fading inside the building through the Force, his fists clenched with helpless fury. "We should go in, help them." "And make the time dilation worse?" Obi-Wan said gently. "We'd only accelerate their suffering." "So we just watch them die?" "We trust Windu and Dooku," Obi-Wan replied, though his own anxiety bled through their training bond. "Have faith, Anakin." Palpatine stood nearby, observing everything with calculating precision. His exposed identity as Sidious meant his political power was crumbling, but he was already adapting, planning, finding new angles. This chaos was setback, yes, but the dark side thrived in chaos. "Your faith is admirable, Kenobi," Palpatine said quietly. "But faith doesn't stop orbital bombardment. In 8 minutes, both fleets will glass this planet. Q has ensured that regardless of the outcome, everyone loses." "Unless we change the rules," Ahsoka said suddenly. All eyes turned to the young Padawan. "Q wants us to play his game, find the weapon, make impossible choices, suffer moral dilemmas. What if we refuse?" "Explain," Yoda commanded. "Q's omnipotent, right? He can do anything. So why create an elaborate test? Why not just take the Force away if that's what he wants?" Ahsoka's montrals twitched as she worked through the logic. "Because he's not trying to destroy us. He's trying to teach us something. He wants us to evolve." "So?" Anakin asked impatiently. "So maybe the lesson isn't about finding the weapon. Maybe it's about proving we don't need it." Ahsoka looked at Yoda. "What if we tell both fleets the truth? Tell them there's an omnipotent entity testing us, that the weapon is a trap, and that fighting over it is exactly what he wants?" Obi-Wan's eyes widened. "Radical honesty. Stop playing the political game entirely. They'll think we're insane," Palpatine interjected, "or that you're stalling." "Maybe," Ahsoka admitted. "But Q said he wants to see if we can evolve." "Well, maybe evolution means admitting we're being manipulated and choosing transparency over strategy." Inside the hospital, Windu and Dooku finally broke through the dead Jedi's defenses. Working in perfect coordination, they disarmed all 3 constructs simultaneously. The Force energy bodies didn't dissolve. They simply stepped aside. "Worthy," Qui-Gon's construct acknowledged. "The weapon is yours." The crystalline device pulsed in the center of the arena, approximately the size of a human head, radiating power that made the Force itself recoil. Dooku reached for it, then stopped. "What do we do with it?" he asked Windu. "If we destroy it, we prove we feared its power. If we use it, we prove Q's point about corruption." If we hide it, we prove we're no better than Sidious with his secret plans. Windu stared at the weapon, his tactical mind calculating every scenario. 6 minutes remained outside. Inside, they'd been fighting for nearly 5 subjective hours. Both men were exhausted, their bodies aching from time dilation stress. We take it to the surface, Windu decided, and we give both fleets a choice. Trust us to handle this, or destroy everyone trying to claim it. That's not a strategy. That's faith. Perhaps faith is the only strategy Q can't predict. They grabbed the device together, Jedi Master and Sith Lord, both hands on the crystalline surface, and ran for the turbo lift. The moment they exited the hospital with the weapon, time snapped back to normal. Windu and Dooku collapsed to their knees, their bodies readjusting. But Windu held the weapon high where both fleets could see it.
This is Master Windu to all forces. We have secured the weapon. Stand down.
4 minutes remained. Above them, dozens of capital ships held their fire. But Anakin could feel the trigger fingers tensing, the commanders calculating whether to obey or attack. Q materialized in the sky, visible to everyone on every ship, his face enormous and grinning. "Well done," he announced. "You found the weapon. Now comes the truly interesting question. What will you do with it?" The weapon began to glow in Windu's hands, reacting to something. A countdown appeared in holographic numbers. 347, 346, 345. "Oh, did I mention it has a timer?" Q asked innocently. "Once activated by a Force user's touch, it detonates in just under 4 minutes. When it does, every Force-sensitive being within this star system loses their connection permanently. Jedi, Sith, Padawans, younglings, all of them become ordinary mortals." Horror spread across every Force user's face. "You can't deactivate it," Q continued cheerfully. "But you can choose where it detonates. In orbit with the fleets, on the surface with the survivors, or," he smiled, "you could do something truly unprecedented." Anakin looked at the weapon, at his masters, at Palpatine, at the fleets above. 3 minutes, 41 seconds, and the fate of the Force itself hung in the balance. 3 minutes, 38 seconds. Mace Windu held the weapon like a thermal detonator, its crystalline surface pulsing with energy that made his connection to the Force scream warnings. Around him, every Force-sensitive being felt the countdown in their bones, a ticking clock measuring the seconds until they became ordinary mortals.
"Get it off the planet,"
a clone commander shouted.
"Launch it into space."
"And detonate it near our fleets?" Admiral Yularen's voice crackled through comlinks.
"That weapon would strip Force sensitivity from every Jedi aboard our ships."
On the Separatist channel, General Grievous growled mechanically.
"Count Dooku, throw the weapon at the Republic fleet. Destroy their Jedi advantage while you still can."
Dooku stood beside Windu, both men exhausted from their temporal ordeal. "If I were still fully committed to the Sith cause, that would be the strategic choice," he admitted quietly. "But you're not," Windu said. It wasn't a question. "I don't know what I am anymore." 3 minutes, 15 seconds. Anakin stepped forward, his hand extended. "Give it to me. I'll take it into orbit, get it far enough away that the blast radius won't reach anyone." "You'd never make it in time," Obi-Wan calculated. "Even at maximum sublight speed, 3 minutes isn't enough to reach safe distance." "Then I'll die trying," Anakin said simply. "Isn't that what the Chosen One is supposed to do? Sacrifice himself for the greater good?" Ahsoka grabbed his arm. "Master, no. There has to be another way." Palpatine watched with predatory interest, his mind racing through scenarios. If the weapon detonated on the surface, he'd lose his Force powers but survive. and a galaxy without Force users meant no Jedi to oppose him. He could rule through military might alone. If it detonated in orbit near the Republic fleet, the Jedi Order would be crippled, accelerating his plans by years. Either outcome served his purposes. "Anakin should take it," Palpatine said, his voice carrying false reluctance. "It's the only logical choice. One life to save millions of Force sensitives across the galaxy." Yoda's ears flattened against his head. "Manipulating him still you are. Transparent your words are, Sidious." "Am I wrong?" Palpatine challenged. "What's your alternative, Master Yoda? Let it detonate here and doom every Jedi, every Padawan, every youngling in the temple?" 2 minutes, 47 seconds. "There's another option," Ahsoka said, her voice cutting through the panic. "We don't take it anywhere. We let it detonate right here." Silence. Every Force user stared at her in disbelief. "Ahsoka, that's madness," Obi-Wan said gently. "You'd lose your connection to the Force. We all would. Would that be so terrible?" Ahsoka looked at each of them in turn. "Q's entire test has been about whether we can evolve beyond our programming. Maybe this is what he means. Maybe we prove that the Force doesn't define us, that Jedi can still be peacekeepers, that people can still be good, without mystical powers. Or," Dooku interjected, "we prove that the Force is essential to galactic balance, and removing it creates chaos." "But it doesn't remove it from everyone," Ahsoka argued. "Just Force sensitives in this system. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the younglings being trained, the hidden Sith across the galaxy, they'd all keep their powers. Only those of us here right now would lose it." Anakin felt something shift in his understanding. "She's right. Q isn't trying to destroy the Force. He's testing whether we'd sacrifice our own power for a principle." 2 minutes, 19 seconds. Q materialized among them, sitting cross-legged in midair. "Ooh, the young one is catching on." "Yes, Ahsoka Tano, you've identified the real test. Here's the question that matters. Are you defined by your power or by your choices?" "This isn't a test, it's torture!" Anakin shouted at him. "It's evolution," Q corrected. "Every species reaches a point where they must transcend their limitations or stagnate. You've built an entire civilization around Force users being special, chosen, superior. What happens when you voluntarily give that up?" Mace Windu looked at the weapon in his hands, then at Yoda. "Master Yoda, as senior council member, the decision is yours." Yoda closed his ancient eyes, reaching deep into the Force one last time. He felt the threads of destiny, the prophecies, the careful balance maintained for millennia. And he felt something else, Q's presence like a void, proving that reality extended far beyond the Force's boundaries. "Ahsoka's wisdom, I sense," Yoda said softly. "Evolved beyond us, she has. Attached to power we are. Defined by it. Perhaps time it is to learn who we are without it." "You can't be serious," Palpatine hissed, his composure cracking. "Without the Force, you're nothing. The Sith will crush you. I will crush you." "Will you?" Obi-Wan asked calmly. "You'll lose your powers too, Sidious. We'll all be ordinary men and women, and then we'll see whose philosophy actually holds merit." 1 minute, 53 seconds. Dooku laughed suddenly, a sound of genuine surprise. "I understand now. Q isn't testing our power. He's testing whether we're brave enough to be vulnerable. The Sith cling to power through fear. The Jedi cling to the Force through dogma. Both refuse to admit we might not need it." He knelt and placed his hand over Windu's on the weapon. "I'll stay. I'll lose my connection to the dark side, to the power I've spent years cultivating. And I'll face whatever comes next as just a man." One by one, the others made their choices. Mace Windu, "I'll stay." Obi-Wan, "I'll stay." Ahsoka, "I'll stay." Yoda, Stay, I will. Anakin looked at them, then at the fleets above, then at Palpatine's horrified expression. The Chancellor, the Sith Lord, was backing away, realizing that if the weapon detonated, his 1,000-year plan would die with his Force powers. Anakin, Palpatine said urgently, you're the chosen one. Your destiny is to bring balance to the Force. You can't just throw that away. Maybe balance means choosing to be ordinary, Anakin replied. He placed his hand on the weapon alongside the others. I'll stay. 1 minute, 11 seconds. Palpatine snarled with pure rage and ignited his lightsaber, lunging toward them to destroy the weapon or kill them all. A massive telekinetic wave froze him in place. Every Jedi and even Dooku had combined their Force powers in unison, creating a barrier Palpatine couldn't penetrate. Your reign ends here, Sidious, Windu said coldly. One way or another. 49 seconds. Final call, Q announced to the fleets. Any Force users who want to evacuate the system, you have 45 seconds to jump to hyperspace. Stay, and you lose your powers forever. Choose! Through the Force, Anakin felt the panic aboard both fleets. Some Jedi made the choice to flee, their ships jumping to hyperspace in flashes of pseudo-motion. Some remained, trusting their generals. Some simply froze, unable to decide. 30 seconds. The Jedi on the surface formed a circle around the weapon, their hands joined. Light side and dark side energy swirled together. Windu's Va-Pod channeling Dooku's Sith power, all of it flowing into a single moment of unity. Thank you, Dooku said quietly to no one in particular, for reminding me who I was. 20 seconds. Palpatine screamed with hatred, pouring everything into breaking free, but the combined Force users held him suspended. 10 seconds. Ahsoka closed her eyes. May the Force be with us one last time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The weapon detonated. A wave of crystalline energy exploded outward in complete silence, washing over the planet in a sphere of shimmering light. It passed through ships, through people, through the very fabric of the Force itself. And everywhere it touched, the connection between living beings and the cosmic energy field severed. Anakin gasped as he felt the Force, his constant companion since childhood, the power that made him special, simply disappear. It didn't hurt, it just ended. Beside him, Obi-Wan staggered. Yoda collapsed to his knees. Ahsoka's montrals stopped sensing Force vibrations. Dooku's dark side presence winked out like a candle, and Palpatine, released from their telekinetic hold, stood trembling with impotent fury. No lightning, no Force choke, no dark side powers at all. Just an old man in Chancellor's robes, surrounded by people who were no longer afraid of him. Q stood among them, observing with genuine fascination. Well done, he said softly. You chose vulnerability over power. That's evolution. The silence was absolute. Anakin reached for the Force and found nothing. No connection to the living energy that had defined him since he was 9 years old. No enhanced reflexes, no precognition, no ability to sense the emotions of those around him. He was just human, ordinary. Around him, every Jedi and Sith in the system experienced the same devastating absence. Mace Windu's hand went to his lightsaber, but the weapon felt different now. Just a metal cylinder, no longer an extension of his will. Yoda leaned heavily on his staff, suddenly appearing every one of his 900 years without the Force sustaining him. Ahsoka touched her montrals, feeling them still physically present but empty of the Force-enhanced spatial awareness they'd always provided. It's really gone, she whispered. Dooku stood perfectly still, his expression unreadable. For decades, the dark side had been a constant presence. Rage, ambition, power flowing through him every moment. Now there was just quiet. He looked at his hand as if seeing them for the first time. "I feel nothing," he said, and his voice carried wonder rather than despair. "No whispers, no temptation, no dark side clawing at my thoughts." Palpatine was less philosophical. The Emperor-in-Waiting staggered backward, his face contorted with disbelief and fury.
What have you done?
He screamed at them. "Do you understand what you've surrendered? The power to shape galaxies, to influence minds, to transcend mortality." "We surrendered nothing," Obi-Wan said calmly, though Anakin could hear the uncertainty beneath his master's words.
"We made a choice. A choice to be weak!"
Palpatine snarled. He lunged at Yoda, hands reaching for the ancient Jedi's throat, and Rex's blaster bolt caught him in the shoulder. Palpatine spun and fell, clutching the wound. Blood, real, ordinary blood, stained his Chancellor's robes. He looked up at Captain Rex with genuine shock. Without the Force to sense the attack, without supernatural reflexes to dodge, he was just a man who'd been shot.
"Sir,"
Rex said to Anakin, his blaster still leveled at Palpatine.
"Orders?"
Anakin stared at the fallen Sith Lord. This was the moment he'd seen in Q's vision, except different. In that vision, he'd become Palpatine's apprentice. Now, standing here without the Force, Anakin felt something he hadn't expected: clarity. "Arrest him," Anakin commanded. "Sheev Palpatine, you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, and war crimes." "On what authority?" Palpatine laughed bitterly. "I'm still the Supreme Chancellor. The Senate still answers to me. You're just soldiers who've lost their mystical powers." "Then we take you before the Senate," Obi-Wan said, "and let the Republic decide your fate through law and justice, not force powers or Sith manipulation. Isn't that what democracy looks like?" Palpatine's smile was venomous. "You naive fools. The moment the galaxy learns the Jedi have lost their powers, every criminal, every warlord, every ambitious senator will move against you. The order is finished." "Perhaps," Yoda admitted, his voice weaker without the Force but no less wise. "But finished on our terms, it will be. Not destroyed by Sith treachery, but transformed by choice." Above them, Q began a slow applause that echoed across the battlefield. "Magnificent! You actually did it. You chose principle over power, vulnerability over invincibility. Do you know how rare that is? I've tested thousands of species across hundreds of realities, and maybe 3 have made this choice." "Is this what you wanted?" Ahsoka asked, looking up at the omnipotent being. "To strip us of the Force?" "I wanted to see if you could," Q corrected. "If you'd cling to power like every other species, or if you'd prove capable of growth." He descended until he stood among them, his expression genuinely impressed. "The Force made you special, but it also made you dependent. Jedi built an entire philosophy around being chosen by midi-chlorians. Sith based their identity on dark side power. Neither of you knew who you were without it." He gestured to the surrounding clone troopers, the battle droids who'd gained and then lost their Force-granted consciousness. The ordinary people watching from the Crystal City. Now you're like them. No destiny, no prophecy, just people trying to survive in a complicated galaxy. "And the war?" Mace Windu asked. "Both fleets are still in orbit. The Separatists still exist. The Republic is still fractured." Q snapped his fingers. Suddenly, holographic displays appeared showing the galaxy-wide reaction. News of Palpatine's exposure as Darth Sidious was already spreading through the HoloNet. But more shocking was the revelation that the Jedi had voluntarily surrendered their Force powers to stop a greater threat. Public opinion was fracturing. Some systems praised the Jedi's sacrifice. Others declared them fools. The Separatist leadership was in chaos. Their Count Dooku revealed as cooperating with Jedi, their strategic advantage of Jedi losing powers, balanced by the fact that Republic Jedi made the choice willingly. "I've accelerated the information flow," Q explained. "Normally, this would take weeks to spread across the galaxy. I'm giving you hours. By tomorrow, every being in known space will know that Jedi and Sith chose to become ordinary to stop a weapon they could have used to dominate everyone." "That's not exactly what happened," Obi-Wan pointed out. "Close enough for politics," Q replied with a shrug. "And here's where it gets truly interesting. You now have to convince a galaxy that you're worth following without the Force to back up your authority. Jedi who can't use lightsabers, peacekeepers with no supernatural abilities, philosophers without mystical proof of their connection to cosmic truth." Anakin felt something stir in his chest. Not the Force, but something else. Purpose, maybe. "We were never supposed to be warriors anyway," he said slowly. "The Jedi were peacekeepers, diplomats, and mediators. We can do that without the Force." "Can you?" Q challenged. "Because the Separatists are debating whether to continue the war. Count Dooku no longer has dark side powers to command them, but General Grievous is still operational, still commanding millions of battle droids. What stops them from conquering the now powerless Republic?" Dooku stepped forward, his bearing still regal despite his exhaustion. "I do." He activated his comlink on the Separatist frequency. "General Grievous, this is Count Dooku. Stand down all offensive operations immediately. I am ordering a ceasefire." Grievous's mechanical voice crackled through. "You lost your Sith powers, Count. You have no authority over me now. Lord Sidious was our true master, and he has been exposed and captured. The Separatist Council will decide leadership, not a powerless fallen Jedi." The channel went dead. Dooku's expression remained calm, but Anakin saw the flicker of uncertainty. Without the Force, without dark side intimidation, Dooku was just a former Jedi who'd led a rebellion. His authority had evaporated with his powers. "So," Q said cheerfully, "former Force users must now negotiate peace without the ability to enforce it. The war continues, but the players have changed. Palpatine's plans are exposed, but he still has loyalists. The Jedi Order must redefine itself, and all of you," he gestured to Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Yoda, Windu, Dooku, "must figure out who you are when you're not special anymore." He began to fade, his form becoming translucent. "Wait!" Ahsoka called out. "That's it? You're just leaving?" "My experiment is complete," Q replied. "You've evolved beyond your initial programming. Now comes the hard part, living with that evolution. Besides," his smile returned, "I have other realities to explore, but I'll be watching occasionally. Your galaxy has become quite entertaining." "The weapon," Obi-Wan said urgently. "Can you restore the Force? Can you undo this?" Q paused, considering. "I could, but that would invalidate the entire point. You made your choice. Live with it." "And those who evacuated?" Mace Windu asked. "The Jedi who fled to hyperspace before the detonation?" "Still have their powers," Q confirmed. "The Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the Younglings, the Jedi across the galaxy who weren't in this system, all unchanged. So the Order survives, just divided. Those who kept their powers and those who sacrificed them." His eyes gleamed with mischief. "That should create interesting philosophical debates." He was almost completely transparent now. "One last question," Anakin said. "The vision you showed me, burning on Mustafar, becoming Vader, Can that still happen without the Force? Q's fading smile was enigmatic. Destiny isn't about power, Anakin Skywalker. It's about choices. You can still become a monster or a hero. The Force just made it more dramatic. Now you'll have to earn it the hard way. He vanished completely. The crystal plains of Christophsis fell silent as Q's presence dissipated completely from the galaxy. Above, both Republic and Separatist fleets held their positions in tense standoff, weapons charged, but no one willing to fire the first shot now that the game had fundamentally changed. Anakin Skywalker stood looking at his hand, flexing fingers that had once channeled the Force with casual ease. Now they were just hands. Flesh, bone, neural impulses. Ordinary. He'd spent his entire adult life being told he was the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. Now the Force was gone from him, and he had no idea who he was supposed to be. "Master," he said quietly to Obi-Wan, "what do we do now?" Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had always seemed to have an answer for everything, looked equally uncertain. "I honestly don't know, Anakin. The Jedi Order has existed for over 25,000 years. Every tradition, every practice, every teaching has been built around the Force. Without it," he trailed off. "Without it, we're just people with philosophy degrees and swords," Ahsoka finished. She picked up her lightsaber hilts, examining them with new perspective. "These still work, right? They're just plasma blades powered by kyber crystals. We don't need the Force to ignite them." Mace Windu activated his lightsaber experimentally. The purple blade hummed to life, but it felt wrong in his hand, heavy, unbalanced, without Force-enhanced reflexes to guide it. "We can use them," he confirmed. "But without precognition, without enhanced speed and strength, we're just soldiers with dangerous weapons. Any trained fighter with a blaster has the advantage now." "Then we train differently," Dooku said, surprising everyone by joining the conversation. The former Count stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his bearing still aristocratic despite having lost everything that made him powerful. "The Jedi weren't always warriors. Before the Ruusan Reformation, before the Old Republic fell, there were Jedi philosophers, historians, scientists. Perhaps this is an opportunity to return to those roots." Spoken like someone trying to avoid a prison cell, Mace Windu said coldly. "I deserve a prison cell," Dooku replied without defensiveness. "I've committed atrocities in service to the dark side, but I'm offering practical advice. The Jedi Order must evolve or die. You've lost your primary advantage. Adapt or become irrelevant." Yoda leaned heavily on his staff, his body suddenly feeling every one of his 9 centuries without the Force to sustain him. "Wisdom, the Count speaks. Hard truth, but truth nonetheless." He looked at each of them in turn. Windu, Kenobi, Skywalker, Tano, and even Dooku. "Representatives we are of 2 paths, those who kept the Force and those who sacrificed it. Return to the temple we must, and decide what the Jedi Order becomes. Assuming the temple survives," Obi-Wan said grimly. "Master Yoda, when word spreads that the council members lost their powers, every enemy of the Order will move against Coruscant. The Jedi have made enemies for millennia. Many will see this as their chance for revenge. Then we defend it without the Force," Anakin said, surprising himself with his conviction. "We prove that the Jedi stand for something beyond mystical powers. Justice, peace, protection. Those aren't Force concepts. They're principles." Captain Rex approached, his helmet under his arm. Without the Force sensitivity Q had briefly given him, he was back to being an ordinary clone soldier. But the experience had changed him. "Sir, the 501st stands ready. Force powers or not, you're still our generals. We follow you." Around them, other clone troopers echoed the sentiment. They'd fought alongside these Jedi for years. The loss of supernatural abilities didn't change loyalty earned through shared combat. A comlink chimed. Obi-Wan answered, and Senator Padme Amidala's holographic form appeared. General Kenobi, the Senate is in emergency session. Chancellor. She caught herself. Palpatine has been formally removed from office pending trial, but the political situation is chaos. Half the Senate wants to arrest all remaining Jedi as traitors. The other half wants to declare you heroes. And the separatist worlds are fractured. Some want peace now that Dooku has defected. Others see this as their chance to win. Senator, we're returning to Coruscant, Obi-Wan replied. We'll address the Senate directly and let democracy decide our fate. That's what we should have done from the beginning instead of becoming generals. Padme's expression softened. That's very idealistic, General. I hope the galaxy is ready for idealism. The hologram faded. Anakin caught Obi-Wan's eye. His master nodded slightly. Padme didn't know about their relationship, but Anakin would need to have difficult conversations soon. Without the Force to hide his emotions, every feeling would be visible. No more secrets. Transport ships are incoming, Rex reported. Republic and Separatist. Looks like both sides want to retrieve their people before the situation escalates. Dooku stepped forward, his decision made. Master Windu, I formally surrender myself to Jedi custody. I will testify before the Republic Senate about Darth Sidious's manipulation of both sides, the true nature of the war, and my own crimes. I offer no defense except this. Without the dark side clouding my judgment, I see clearly what I've become. Let justice be served. Mace Windu studied the man who had once been Yoda's greatest student, then a Sith Lord, and now was simply a tired old man seeking redemption. You'll stand trial, Windu said finally. And if you're lying, if this is another manipulation, then kill me, Dooku interrupted. I'm powerless now. Any soldier with a blaster can end me. But I give you my word. The word of the Jedi I was 70 years ago. I will speak truth. Yoda closed his eyes, feeling the weight of centuries. Accept his surrender, we will, and pray that healing the galaxy can still achieve. The first transport ships began landing. Republic gunships and Separatist shuttles maintaining careful distance from each other. The war wasn't over, but battle had paused. Both sides needed time to process what Q's experiment had revealed. Ahsoka looked up at the sky where Q had been. Do you think he's really gone? Probably watching from whatever dimension omnipotent beings inhabit, Obi-Wan said. Studying us like we're his experiment. Then let's give him something worth watching, Anakin said. He picked up his lightsaber, feeling its weight differently now. Not a Jedi weapon powered by the Force, just a tool like any other. We prove that people don't need mystical powers to choose good over evil. We prove that the Jedi philosophy works without the Force to back it up. Ambitious goal, Mace Windu observed. I was the chosen one, Anakin replied with a slight smile. Now I'm just Anakin Skywalker. Maybe that's better. They boarded the transports together. Jedi without the Force, a Sith Lord without darkness, clone soldiers without mystical generals, all heading toward an uncertain future. On Coruscant, the Jedi Temple stood unchanged, its spires reaching toward the sky. Inside, Force-sensitive younglings continued their training, unaware that their council had sacrificed their powers. The schism between empowered and powerless Jedi would define the order for generations. In hidden chambers across the galaxy, other Sith felt Sidious's failure through the dark side. Some saw opportunity, others saw warning. The rule of two had been exposed, but darkness always found new forms. And somewhere beyond dimensional barriers, Q observed it all with genuine satisfaction. They chose growth over stagnation, he mused to another Q who'd appeared beside him. They accepted vulnerability. That's remarkable for such a young species. Will you restore their powers eventually? The other Q asked. Perhaps, perhaps not. The interesting part is what they build without the Force defining them. Will they become better, worse, different? Q smiled. Either way, I'll be watching. Far below, on a crystal planet scarred by war, Anakin Skywalker looked at the binary sunset and made a choice. Not because the Force guided him. Not because prophecy demanded it, but because it was right. He would be better. They all would. The galaxy far, far away would never be the same, and for the first time in millennia, its fate rested entirely in the hands of ordinary people, making extraordinary choices. The experiment was complete, but its consequences would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Q had arrived as a cosmic wild card, an omnipotent entity who saw the Star Wars galaxy as nothing more than an elaborate test subject. He'd granted Force powers to clones, consciousness to droids, and exposed the galaxy's greatest deception. That Supreme Chancellor Palpatine was the Sith Lord orchestrating everything from the shadows. But his greatest accomplishment wasn't the chaos he'd created. It was forcing an entire philosophy to evolve. The Jedi Order would never be the same, divided between those who kept their Force powers and those who'd sacrificed them on Christophsis. The Order faced an existential crisis. Were they defined by their connection to mystical energy or by their commitment to peace and justice? The council members who'd lost their powers became symbols of a new philosophy, that righteousness didn't require supernatural abilities, that anyone could choose to serve the light. Anakin Skywalker, freed from the burden of prophecy, discovered something unexpected: relief. Without the Force constantly whispering about his destiny, without the pressure of being the chosen one, he was free to simply choose who he wanted to be. The vision of burning on Mustafar, of becoming Darth Vader, no longer felt inevitable. He was just a man who loved Padme Amidala and wanted to build something better than the endless war that had consumed his life. Count Dooku, stripped of the dark side's constant whispers, found clarity he hadn't experienced in decades. His trial before the Senate would expose the full extent of Palpatine's manipulation, how the war had been orchestrated from both sides, how democracy had been corrupted from within. Whether the galaxy would forgive him remained uncertain, but for the first time since his fall, Dooku felt something resembling peace. And Palpatine, the master manipulator whose thousand-year Sith plan had crumbled in a single day, sat in a Republic prison cell without the Force to save him. His political power was broken, his Sith identity exposed, his dark side abilities gone. He was just a man awaiting judgment, and the galaxy would finally get to decide his fate through law rather than power. The Clone Wars continued, but fundamentally changed. Without Force-wielding generals on either side defining the conflict's supernatural stakes, it became what it should have been from the beginning: a political dispute requiring political solutions. Negotiations began in earnest. Peace, previously impossible while Sidious manipulated both sides, suddenly seemed achievable. Q watched it all from beyond dimensional barriers, satisfied with his work. He'd proven that even in a galaxy governed by the Force, by prophecy and destiny, beings could choose to evolve beyond their programming. They could sacrifice power for principle, vulnerability for growth, certainty for possibility. The Force would always exist in the Star Wars galaxy. Younglings would still be trained. New Jedi would rise. But the lesson had been learned. The Force didn't define them. They defined themselves. And somewhere in the crystalline ruins of Christophsis, a small memorial was erected. Not to the Force users who'd lost their powers, but to the choice they'd made. A reminder that the greatest power in any galaxy wasn't mystical energy or ancient prophecies. It was the courage to choose who you wanted to become. May the Force be with you. More stories await.